If you had the power to create anything you wanted, what would you make? That is the question on every video game designer's minds. This question has been made possible to answer by the development of computers that can handle a vast amount of information, able to craft a whole new world in digital form. Pastor Keith Craft says to never allow the good to be robbed of the best. Out of the hundreds of thousands of video games that made over the past few decades, only a select few have gone down in history and are regarded as the most successful. If one is able to make their own game, why not strive to make that game great? Hi, my name is Brendan Hutchins. I'm a senior at FHS, and this year in ISM, I am studying video game design. So over the past few years, I have been researching how to become a successful game designer, as well as the specifics of the industry. And that meant reading articles and interviewing professionals in the field. So the first research article that I read was What's It Take to Be a Video Game Designer? And this article was very interesting and a great place to start because it specified the specifics of why and what skills you need to have. So you need to know how to tell a story and present ideas clearly for people to hear them. It's great to be in ISM class because that's what I'm doing right now, talking to you guys. And you also need to have programming and great computer skills. So be very technical and be familiar with the interface. And it also said to get connected with the rest of the game developer community. So IGDA, which is the game developers forums, and to talk to people. And the next paper that I'm going to focus on is Mirrored Morality, an exploration of moral choice in video games. And this was a very interesting paper to read, as it was a case study analyzing how a person's moral system goes through their playthrough of games. So you take your real-world experiences in real life, and then you put it into a video game setting. And they decided to use Fallout 3, which is a post-apocalyptic thriller FPS that requires players to make important and story-changing choices. And they analyzed it, they sat down and they observed how they played in a specific act in the game. And the results show that people take their real-world experiences in video games and use them in it, which is very interesting in that they feel guilt whenever they do the wrong decisions, but the enjoyment of either being the quote-unquote good guy or bad guy never goes away, because it's still a game. And it shows how necessary knowledge in psychology is, which is what I do plan to study on the side in college. And I also interviewed many professionals in the field as well, one of them being Mr. Michael Brault, who was a narrative game designer and writer, and he is currently teaching in the University of Texas at Dallas. Now, he is probably the most experienced person I've interviewed, as he has been in the industry for over 30 years. And he has worked on epics such as Wolfenstein, the original Doom, and Dungeons & Dragons, as well as Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. I remember playing that game whenever I was little. And he said that you need to be very interested in games, or else you're going to get burnt out, because you work with them every day. So you need to constantly be playing and learning about different ones. So his other big thing was to go to a big university. His one mistake and the one thing that he regrets was going to an art specific school. So he had no decision to go into any other topic of his choice and switch into a different area of expertise. And he said to do things on your own, things that the school will not teach you. And that is a common point found across everyone that I've interviewed, is you need to learn this on your own and do it yourself, per se. And the next person that I interviewed is Mr. Phil Johnson. And he is a senior game designer at Playful Corp, which is a company that produces virtual reality games such as The Cute Lucky Tale, where it follows a fox going after his pig that got kidnapped. It was very interesting trying on the virtual reality as well. So the cool thing about virtual reality is it's a new way of gaming and storytelling. It's never been done before. I mean, forget Nintendo with the Virtual Boy, but that fell apart in the 80s. But now it's becoming an increasingly popular thing. I mean, you see the commercials with Samsung everywhere now. And that is why the demand for workers is high as well. So it is a possible industry to go into whenever you're out of college and looking for a job. And he said to take advantage of the current video game programs such as Game Jolt or events and widely used things on forums. And the next person that I interviewed was Mr. Jonathan Skinner, who is a level designer who worked on the Doom remake at id Software, which is down in Richardson, which I had the pleasure to go into the building, but they didn't let me pass the first desk, but that's okay. And he said to be very skilled because it is a very competitive field. Everyone wants to go into it, and companies only take the very best. So he said to start working on level and game design now, and so then you can have the upper edge on everyone else. And he also said that the industry is it's about having a huge sense of knowledge and being able to take multiple aspects of society, history, physics, math, and tying it all into one game. So you need to have general knowledge of pretty much everything. And this led to interviewing Mr. Gary Brubaker, who is the educational director at SMU Guildhall. And while he is retired from being a game designer, he did tell me a lot about the school. And I learned that it is the second best grad school in video games in the nation, second only to USC. And his big thing was you need to be the jack of all trades. You need to be good at everything, coding and designing and concept artistry, as well as drawing. So you just need to be able to do anything that they throw at you. And he said don't develop games around the story, because that was my mistake, was thinking that games tell a story, such as the Telltale games of The Walking Dead and whatnot. But no, the story is designed around the gameplay. The gameplay is the main focus. And the next person that I interviewed was Mr. J.R. Honeycutt. And he is a board game designer. I didn't know that he was one until I actually emailed him, but I thought that it would be a very interesting experience to see the board game side of it. And the cool thing about him is that everyone who's anyone in the game industry knows him. You can't go a couple steps without someone saying, "Hey, JR," whenever I was with him at BGGCon, which is a huge board game convention that's run in Dallas. And I never knew how huge the board game industry is until I actually stepped in there and saw the massive auditorium that's supposed to be a ballroom, but it was filled with tables and there were thousands of people just playing games and hanging out. And that was very cool to me. So it is a possible area that I could also go into should I choose. And the next thing I'm going to focus is an interesting opportunity I had. And it was to sit in a mock classroom setting at the University of Texas at Dallas, taught by Dr. Evans, who studies how video games impact society about game communities. So she said, no matter what you do, communities will develop around your game, whether you like it or not, in much the same way that factions develop in the government. And she also said that you need to have a balance between moderation and freedom, because if you're just a tight-fisted monarch, this is how it's going to be. That will be no fun and will not inspire creativity or much enjoyment from people. And on the other side, if you allow them to run free, they could potentially steal your work and make a whole mess and ruin your game's reputation. So you just need to embrace the publicity. And all of this leads up to my current mentor, Mr. Skylar German. He is the lead game designer at Gearbox Software. So not only am I learning about the basic game design, but I'm also learning about leadership qualities, in that he has to tie in the artists and the coders and all of these different people's ideas, and he needs to put it into one idea per se, and to tie in everyone's beliefs of how the game should be. So I'm learning about leadership qualities, which that is a huge stress in today's world, is you need to be able to lead a team of people. So he went straight from graduate school to a full working job. He went to the SMU Guildhall program, as a matter of fact. And he said that he stayed up many a night working on his portfolio and potential games that he can showcase for different people. And that he said that ultimately led to him getting the job at Gearbox. And his works include Battleborn and Borderlands, of course. And this is also a basic point that I learned across many people, is you need to have a portfolio, something to show people. people will not hire you just because you went to a famous game design school. No, because now that's becoming more and more popular. You need to actually show them what you're able to do, which is why I need to research about how to showcase a successful portfolio as well as build upon that. And finally, my original work. So for my original work, I made a game design document. And what it does is that it sets the framework for which the game is going to be developed upon. So it is very flexible and meant to change over time when new ideas come up. And it may not look like a lot, but it took an incredible amount of time selecting doable ideas and continuing off of. I had literally hundreds of ideas for everything, but I had to narrow it down to one specific idea and then run with it. Continuity is everything. And I also needed to get a taste of what coding and what Unity is like, so I worked on that for a while. I made a basic calculator script, and it didn't really do much, but at least it could add a couple numbers and showcase that I did learn something in coding. And I also had to research the layout of what a game design document is, so I looked at a couple of different ways of how to design it, and they can be as specific as you want, nailing it down, or as broad as you want. And I went for the more broad approach to allow more creativity to come up in the later steps. So my injury did not make it any easier, but I overcame that after a few modifications to my workstation and computer area, which I'm glad that I built myself, because it can run the very heavy programs of game studios and Unity and Microsoft Visual Studio. And I am very pleased with what came out of my original work at 10 pages in total. And I'm looking forward to making this document become a reality in this field, in ISM. So all of this started with this activity and choice to take ISM. And through my mentor and all the people I met along the way, the sky is truly the limit to what is possible in the future. Thank you.